There was a person who was confused. If a knife-wielding man attacks a lady, what will she do? Is she going to press a button on a perfectly ordinary remote and the man will freeze? What if two or more violent men appear before her? Is she going to use the remote again, or the original idiots protect her? And what if a thug makes it past her guardian? Could the lady's right-hand girl stop him after returning with their ice cream? Anyway, the right-hand lady asked her queen if she was all right. The queen replied that she was fine. Then the queen's right hand asked about those men who suddenly attacked her. But the queen said that she couldn't tell her. Then the right hand noticed that the two ice cream that she was holding was already ruined since it was melting. So she was about to leave to buy more, but to her surprise, the queen suddenly took a bite of it. Then she winked at her right hand and said that her bite was enough for her since it's a bit cold for her taste, so she can have the rest. The right hand widens her eyes because the two ice cream is too many calories for her. The queen smiled at her right hand and asked if she didn't want her indirect kiss. The right hand seems worried that the queen might be angry, so she had no other choice. Later on they left the place. Little did they know that there was a surveillance camera watching their every move. It was owned by a girl who commented that the queen was selfish and had others to clean up her mess. It was day one of her Shokyu clique investigation report. It was pretty good since she saw the clique's top member using their power. The right-hand girl was Hokazi Junko, who had a rampage dress with level 4. She can boost her physical abilities and excels at close-quarters combat. The queen was Shokyu Misaki with a level 5 mental out. She observes that Misaki was holding a remote that corresponds to a different power. She can knock people out with a single button or be brainwashed and control them. Misaki's title as a strongest psychological esper is well warranted, and she will undoubtedly be the eye of that year's greatest storm. A cat suddenly walks to her. She thought that Misaki seemed awfully unguarded for such a fearsome power. Or maybe she's just a genius in tailing people. Either way, she will reveal what Misaki was capable of. Then the cat left her and ran away. And that same cat was bumped by Misaki and Junko on their way. On the other hand, students make up 80% of the Academy City's population. It is a city of boys and girls who wield supernatural powers, thanks to the city's Esper development program. Takowadia Middle School is one of the top schools with 2 level SS enrolled and is located in the school garden. A region jointly run by 5 prestigious girls' schools. The students form their own group known as cliques. Most of them belong to cliques where they actively engage in research and building connections. Furthermore, Misaki and Junko were having a chat with 2 other ladies. One of them makes fun of the picture of musicians inside the music room. She also said that they had a smile put on their faces by the pancake's food. She's been dying to try something good because it inspired such a silly occult story. She nearly ordered a second plate of it because of the feeling that she would melt in body and soul. She restrained herself, yet her friend gave her a pitying look with a hand on the bell. One of the ladies asked the other if she was afraid to gain weight. The lady just smiled and said that she doesn't want the pity of a girl who weighs more than her. The next thing she knew, she rang the bell and they couldn't stop and couldn't remember how many they had eaten. One of the ladies remembered something that means to snap. She also added that she felt like she had electricity running through the back of her mind and was so exhilarating. The lady with short hair commented that that friend may have been pushing her in that direction. Junko commented that she has a wonderful friend that took the villain's role for her sake, although she paid for it the next morning. While having their conversation, Misaki seems bored with them. Because for her, girls like them are always the pure sheltered type. She also commented that their words are not valid since they are full of sarcasm. Her eyes widened when a lady said that she was thankful for the unforgettable memory. So she let out a sigh and leaned on the chair. That relaxing atmosphere is the standard in Takowadia. But there are some less relaxing girls. When Misaki furrowed her brows, Junko noticed it, so she asked the queen what it was. She told them that it might not apply with the two. Competing with someone for no good reason never ends well. They can end up in a crisis that they can't escape, so she reminds them to be careful. She sipped at her cup thinking she didn't foresee any crisis around at the moment. On the other hand, a few meters away, there were few students who were gathering. A lady was trying to create a fire on her hand, then in an instant, an explosion occurred. Which is why Misaki and the others were surprised. Junko noticed in the sky that there was something coming, so she immediately stood up and tried to kick every single piece. But she missed one and it landed on Misaki's cup. As a result, the tea spilled on the latter's hand. They saw other students gathering and seems praising a girl named Gayuen-sama. One of the students was about to ask for something, but she instantly stopped her because she knew that student is eager for something. She looks at the clock on her hand and after 2 seconds, she told the student that his summary needs more references, so she gave her a list of texts that she could use. Another girl asked for her work schedule, so Gayuen told her that she was overestimating productivity, so she had to add 5 more days and add more personnel by day 3 if she can do it. Another student was about to ask, but she snapped her finger and told to swap out Ikushima for Yamashiro since the coordinator is perfect for her. Junko and the others were confused about what was happening, but Misaki seems to have an idea. Gayuen notices them, so she walks towards them, makes a bow and introduces herself as the middle school student council vice president Gayuen Tsukasa. Her maid also introduced herself. She also added that she was honored that the queen was observing her student council work. Junko was about to say something, but Misaki stood up and said that they ruined their afternoon tea with irritation. Tsukasa widened her eyes because it might have been carried by the wind over them after the explosion. So she immediately apologized and reasoned that she was only trying to distribute some flyers. Misaki's group noticed it, so they took out the paper. There they found that Tsukasa was running for president on their student council. Tsukasa says that it was more efficient than giving flyers to students one at a time. She also boasted that the flyers are part of a collab with Smile Pancakes and it's limited edition. Only those with flyers can get pancakes. It's her clique's way of showing their value. But Miseki seems not convinced and comments that Tsukasa was buying votes because it's her strategy. She also added that that latter seems short-handed, that she must resort to that bribery ability that comes dangerously close to election fraud. Tsukasa was speechless at first, but she suddenly laughed because the queen had quite the imagination. So she bowed again to pay respect and apologized from the bottom of her heart for ruining their tea time. She also admits that she was short-handed and that no one would be compared to Takawadia's largest scale compared to the clique that crushes all its rivals with quantity over quality. But the queen was not bothered by her piece of nonsense and suggests to rethink her plans instead of lashing out from jealousy. In response, Tsukasa mocked her and asked if she was upset by bringing up a sensitive topic. To think Takawadia's greatest tyrant, wielding the twin cudgels of violence by numbers and brainwashing by powers, actually has a heart. The queen laughs because Tsukasa has the guts to tell that nonsense. Even though they were smiling, it looks like they are starting to build a quarrel. Miseki's three companions seem worried about what is happening and assume that she was upset because their tea time was being interrupted. However, Tsukasa showed Miseki a proud silver watch, a sign that she was taking requests. When she raised it, she was immediately surrounded by a thick ring of her beloved supporters. It symbolizes the bond that she makes. Unlike Miseki's hollow clique, people brainwashed into submission. Junko was furious at what she heard, so she immediately clapped her hands. In seconds, students rushed towards the queen, who was surprised. They carry the queen and put her in a chair, assemble a small stage, then sit on top of the stage. Junko and the others guard the stage and form an evil smile. But they were stunned when Tsukasa suddenly laughed at them because she wasn't expecting a defiant street performance. So she asked them if she should toss them with some spare change. Anyway, Miseki looked down on her and mocked her outdated pocket watch. She confidently sat on her throne and said that people love props and costumes when their confidence is lacking. So she suggested she try to work on her looks instead, like what she was doing. Because for her, Tsukasa was just an 8th grader syndrome. The latter shakes in anger, so she snaps her finger, then her maid instantly carries her to stand on her maid's shoulder. Now that she was higher than Miseki, she saw things look different when looking down. She refuses to let Miseki's words get to her. She also insults that her body fat is bulging out of those socks, trying to lose them before pretending that she's better than anyone else. She also added that Miseki was wearing white tights to hide her ugly legs. She also made fun of her legs that look like radishes. That's why Miseki couldn't handle it anymore. She was shaking in anger. But she regains her confidence and asks Tsukasa what would a stunter like her who needs to stand on her maid's shoulder know about a woman's body. Tsukasa was furious and stared evilly at Miseki. Then out of the blue, she challenges her to a duel in the election for Students' Council President. She will fight or she will run. Miseki seems to be about to decline, but her supporters agree because their queen will never turn tails and run. Tsukasa takes it as an agreement, so she jumps down from her maid's shoulder. Before she leaves, she reminds Miseki that the elections are between Spurs of at least level 3, so the presence of those powers is built into the rules. Miseki's followers were the one to respond that their queen doesn't need powers because the only power that she needs to win is them. Tsukasa once again mocked them for being the largest clique. But they were all stunned when the latter told them that if she wins, she will break all the cliques. The spy girl heard that the largest cliques have been challenged by the current vice president. She was curious on how Miseki fought back when their source of power had been threatened. Her 10 days of infiltration have begun. She was sent there as a spy to discover anything about Miseki. It bothers her that their leader does not seem very motivated, but as a professional, she must complete her job and not intervene in their issue. Someone told her to dismantle, that's why she quickly was about to leave the place. But she bumped into Miseki on her way out, which is why the latter fell on the ground. Junko seems worried when the queen told her that she can't lift her legs, so she starts to do an exercise that helps her to keep her legs from swelling. But it's not what the queen needs for that moment, because how can she do an exercise when she can't even lift it? Afterwards, the spy was still following Miseki and Junko, who were walking on the street. With her 7 tools, she can monitor their every action even outside of the school, and her tailing day 2 began. Anyway, since the queen was still not in the mood, Junko told her to smile because pancakes are nearby, and they can stop to take a look. She also added that she can apparently get some really nice limited edition products there. The queen smirks at her because it seems that the product that she mentions is the frog again, so she declines her and reasons that it will make her legs fat, so it's a no. When the spy heard it, she thought that the queen was being selfish again. Later on, Junko noticed something strange on top of the building who suddenly jump. So she immediately blocked her body on the queen to protect her because in an instant, they were already surrounded by 4 unknown person. She asked the enemy regarding their names. According to the queen, the event has been happening a lot lately, so she questioned the Academy City's law enforcement's ability. A lady with a black suit walks towards them and says that they are way better than the enforcement. Another lady with white suit forms an evil smile because they finally caught her. Junko gritted her teeth because she didn't know if she could break free while protecting the queen. The queen was surprised when the lady showed her the clothes that they wear. If she recognized it because they already met some of their companions yesterday, the man who suddenly attacked them. But then the lady was irritated when the queen just smiled at them, claiming that she didn't have enough memory space to waste it on random people. The spy was sweating when the enemy said that the queen loves to mock people. She assumes that those people are clearly bad news. She didn't know what to do and was about to dial a number. But when she does so, she hesitates because she doesn't know what to say if they question her. In that way, she might be in trouble too. Anyway, the enemy told them that they heard all about the queen, that she needs to aim her remote at the target to use her power. Unlucky for the queen because she couldn't do that to them because they were surrounded. But they were all surprised, even the spy, when the queen raised her finger because she got an idea. She promised her enemy that with her one finger, they will have them kiss the pavement in a single attack. The spy was shocked because it's not possible. But when the enemy pulls out their gun and aims at the queen, he has no other choice since their lives are more important, so immediately push a button on her phone to ring the alarm. But before the enemies could pull the trigger, they were surprised when the two vanished, and in an instant. Junko was already behind one of them, but then she noticed that Misaki was nowhere to be found. She quickly kicked an enemy. Then, a voice coming from the sky said that they had them surrounded, and that's a problem. It was Mikasa who's aiming her finger into their enemy. All the enemies were shocked when she released her power to them. As a result, their enemies fell on the ground unconscious. Then Mikasa suddenly fell down from above. Fortunately, Junko catches her on time. The queen said that the remote is not her only weapon. She already knew that there's a spy who's following her, so she asks her if she has the willpower ability to turn over a new leaf. Then she could come with her, and she will lend her a hand. When the spy heard it because of her tool, her phone suddenly slipped on her hand and widened her eyes because her identity was now revealed. Afterwards, they went back to the school, her followers along with the spy waiting for her. So she said that she didn't like her action and wanted to punish her. The spy, who is worried, interrupts her and asks if she can do it without relying on mental out. The queen didn't speak and made a gesture. The spy was stunned when the queen's followers didn't speak a bit. She was shaking in fear when Junko told her that it is not mental out that they serve her. It is Shokyu Miseki. The latter explains to her that mental out titles stand out, but it's only a single part of her charm. When she puts her mind to it, she can bring down the goddess of Victor herself. When the queen noticed that the spy was already sweating, she told her that she was just kidding, although she can be fairly greedy. She walks past her followers, then Junko gives her a hand. The queen notices her own hands and she seems dismayed, but he ignores it. However, the Academy City has 80% of its 2.3 million people are students taking part in an Esper development program. But the majority of those are level OS, and a mere 7 have the chosen talent to reach the rank of level 5. Yet all of the Takawadia's middle school students are level 3 or higher, and they have 2 level 5s enrolled. The one who stands at the top of that already monstrous group is the level 5 who leads their largest clique. The monster at the top is beautiful to behold. It's Misaki. Her spin-off begins with her aiming to take complete control of Takiwadai as a student council president and the leader of the largest clique. Several clique members gather in a room. Junko, who led them, told everyone that they already announced that their queen will win, and that victor cannot be by a slim margin, but they must go for a perfectly flawless victory, and that is their mission. They will crush any who stand their way. Now is the time to show them their power. Mikasa seems satisfied when they all yell for their power. However, a student made a report that their usual classroom has been stolen from them, and that has never happened before. It happened when a long-term reservation was cancelled during emergency maintenance of the clique building. But they are currently sending complaints to the Educational Affairs Office. When the queen learns it, she asks if there's someone's interference ability, but she told them that she personally didn't care where they were. But Junko interrupts her and explains that her territory has been invaded, so she should care about it. The room as of the moment is far from suitable for her. The queen became confused when Junko and the girls seemed to understand each other even though they were not talking. She thought that loyalty is nice, but sometimes they get carried away like they did yesterday, but she couldn't stop them. But she hopes that it doesn't blow up in her face. Later on, her followers wear her the crown and a robe. When Junko saw her, she commented that she was indeed beautiful, so they needed to show everyone her true beauty. But it seems the queen was bored, so she took off the robe and the crown to review the rules. According to Junko, the most notable feature of the students' council president election has 2-phase system. Phase 1 is a clique election where the students vote for a clique. Electors are chosen from the cliques based on the result. The second phase is those electors cast their votes to determine the president. The queen made it clear that the candidates come from clique. Junko agreed and said the one can't run if she was not part of him. Another follower interrupts them and gives her a piece of paper where the names of 8 candidates are written. The usual number is 5 or 6, so they hope that isn't a sign of trouble. They suddenly stopped when they were interrupted by a knock on the door. They were surprised when Tsukasa immediately came in and greeted them and paid respect. The queen asks her what her reason for coming into their room is. Misaki noticed that Tsukasa was staring at her decorations, so she told her to ignore it since she didn't want to explain. Anyway, Tsukasa told everyone that she brought gifts as a sign of apologizing for the commotion yesterday. She also felt like she had an unfair advantage in their little duel, so she had some information for Misaki. The cliques were all furrowed her brows waiting for Tsukasa's next word. But something caught their attention when one of them saw that Tsukasa brought them a Smile Pancakes Royal Takeout set along with the Gakoda collab set. Junko was stunned because it's impossible to get since they only make 3 a day at unpredictable times. She instantly shakes Tsukasa's hand and asks if she was sure that they can have such a rare prize. The latter suddenly froze when she noticed something, so she asked Junko if she could change her usual shampoo. The queen didn't seem to like it, especially when Tsukasa praised the other about their appearance. Then she turned to her and told that she was perfect. One of the cliques seems to be doubting her, so she follows Tsukasa's every move while having a conversation with the other. She observes that she's a complete outsider, but one would think she belongs at the school. She assumes that she has the making of a brilliant con artist. However, Tsukasa was sure that they were curious about how Esper powers play into the election. She explains that details for each type of power are different, but in general, anything that directly influences the results is banned. The queen can't command someone to vote or have physical control over them to vote. They were also not allowed to destroy the ballots, but anything not blatantly over the line is fine. The queen seems irritated because it seems like Tsukasa's words seem accusing her of. The latter frankly told her that she could always erase everyone's memory of whatever cheating she did, so the queen made it clear to her that she's not some goody two-shoes, but was not a complete villain either. She claimed that she wouldn't do any of those. Tsukasa laughs at them because they have actually planned for brainwashing and hypnosis, which is why the entire election effectively has other restrictions placed on it. The electors are chosen from the losers of the clique election, where it changes depending on the number of cliques. But this time, the representative of the top 3 cliques become the final candidate, and the representative of the bottom 5 become the electors. So the people defeated in Phase 1 are given the ultimate right to determine the president. Misaki understood and made it clear that she can't do anything that turns them against her. Junko also added that winning Phase 1 in a way the losers won't like will come back to bite in Phase 2, but it only applies to the candidate. The queen asks Tsukasa if there's a chance to win by splitting the clique up into multiple smaller cliques. If they do so, they will be disqualified for being in the same clique, and those will be investigated to prevent that. The presidential election is designed to select for the traits Takiwadai wants in a president, so unbefitting behavior will be punished, since their school is telling them to remain dignified and elegant as they compete for that honor. The queen asks Tsukasa that she might be telling them to make sure they have enough class to be discreet about their trickery. The latter agree with her and eyed she can pull it off. There are special rewards for someone who can put on the perfect show, such as the majority rule. If Misaki earns votes from a majority of the students, the elections end there, and she can win if her numbers are large enough. Misaki made a spark in her eyes because if the other candidates are not popular, then they aren't worth considering as an opponent. She walks towards Tsukasa and says that she is going for that and will crush her in Phase 1 immediately. The latter ignores her, claiming that they will use every trick in the book to stop her. Then she took out her clock and seemed to be waiting for something. Then she stepped backwards and told everyone to listen to the speaker. The voice in the speaker apologized for the interruption, but they have some emergency news from the student council. A named Misaka Makoto has decided to support Gayuen-san in the election. They were all surprised when they heard it. Tsukasa told Misaki that the level 5 rivals her in power and popularity. That Tsundere contrasts her fat with her slender build. She starts to wonder who Takiwadai will support, the kind-hearted lone wolf or the queen of favoritism. Junko couldn't believe it since Makoto and the queen are such close friends. The queen became serious and asked Tsukasa if she intentionally delayed for a better opportunity. The latter didn't directly answer it, but there's one thing she was sure of. The queen failed to stop her. As she said earlier, she has an unfair advantage. She also reminds the queen that she had countless plans in motion, then left the group of the queen speechless. After the event, the building was silent and dark. A student was sitting in the chair while Junko seemed to be interrogating her, asking the girl to admit something because if she will not, Junko threatened her that she will talk to an election commissioner to inform the entire school about something. That's why the girl suddenly stood up and yelled at her not to dare. But the girl began to worry when Junko told her that she can ask anything she wants from her in exchange for keeping her secret for herself. It seems like Junko was acting strange because of the student council election. After the broadcast, Misaka along with a girl were in the broadcast room holding a flash drive. A long-haired girl asked her if it worked. She replied that she didn't know since getting that broadcasted was not her job anymore. But she was sure that Gayuen-san would make it work. Misaka took the juice that the girl gave her and told her not to act like she didn't help too. The girl simply responds that she just sold Misaka to save herself since she's the one who forced her to help. They noticed that they were still in the broadcast room because they can't just hang out there. Before they leave, the girl asks Misaka if she was going to help Gayuen-san too much. Misaka smiled at her and said that it's not like that. There's a lot simpler in her head and said that a dash of chaos makes the government so much more fun. Then they leave the room. On the other hand, the queen along with Junko and the 2 girls were rushing to the broadcast room hoping to catch up with Misaka. But they failed to do so even if they're running at full speed. The queen took out her remote to gather some data on the room, but they only played back some voice data. Junko assumes that it might not really be Misaka. The queen turns to Kobayashi and asks how much does it hurt them if Misaka is against them. The latter said that they would have a very hard time getting a majority of the votes. The queen's supporters are almost all in her clique already, while Misaka is clique-less, so she would likely get more of the swing vote than them. That means being the largest clique might actually work against them. The other cliques will want to avoid having the election end on Phase 1. They will be their greatest threat. She also added that even if a majority will be difficult for them, they need to assume that they will do everything in their power to obstruct them. Perhaps even the Shokyuhu clique versus a 7-clique alliance. So they need to worry about their relationship with the other cliques. The 3 were waiting for their queen's response because the election was going to be a pain. Later on, Misaki announced that she needs to have a quick chat with Misaka. The 3 get it, so they rush outside just to find Misaka. Kobayashi saw their target running away. Then they were surprised when they saw her magnetically clinging to the ceiling to escape. Unfortunately, she escaped again. Kobayashi was frustrated because Misaka is a clever one that keeps getting away, so she suggested that they should contact her at her dorm in the evening. But her companion says that they can't since the girl who already tried it was blocked by a demon face guard. They cannot fail a direct order from their queen, so she suggested that they should surround the Takiwadai grounds just to find her. Junko couldn't control her anger and exclaimed that betraying her best friend and refusing to discuss it's a disgrace to the Gekoer name. Then she showed them her most treasured ultra-rare prize, the golden Gekota figure, and said that she had a plan. She placed the figure in the ground because she was sure Misaka couldn't resist it, then they would catch her with a net. The 3 were confused about Junko's plan for Misaka because she might not fall for that. Kobayashi said that there's no chance because she knew Misaka as a super stan and she's not gonna fall for it. But she was wrong because Junko's idea was a good one and she was being caught. The queen let out a sigh since she couldn't believe what Misaka had done. The latter can be shockingly dumb sometimes, but she can't continue her words because Junko interrupts her and says that Misaka was not dumb, but she proves herself that she is an extremely well-trained Gekoer. The queen was pissed off, so she asked Junko whose side she was on. The latter wanted to say something, but Misaka interrupted and reasoned that she couldn't help it when she saw the treasure like that, and as a result, can't focus on anything else. But she became mad when the queen let out a sigh and commented about her being a nerd. She furrowed her brows and stated that the queen can't buy a single snack without obsessing over artificial colors, seasoning, and preservatives. She added that the queen always refuses to eat out with her because she doesn't trust imports from that country to be sanitary. She accuses her of being the worst kind of health nerd. In response, Misaki told her why she wouldn't be careful when it's going to be a part of her body, and the result of her superior diet is plain to see. Misaka stood up and clenched her fist. She yells at the queen that those had nothing to do with it because she was just trying to have some sympathy for the people who have dealt with her. Then they start a heated argument. The followers thought that they were a lover's spat while Junko was wiping her tears. Later on, Misaka gave up and told them that if the queen only called her to argue. Then she immediately turned around to leave, but before she could reach the door, Misaki told her that she was trying to escape because she felt guilty. Then she grabs Misaka and asks if she really sided with Gayuin and if she was just a game to her. Misaka suddenly lowered her tone and admitted that she really helped Gayuin-san, but she can't tell them why. The queen insists to knowing the truth, so she let out her remote and released a massive power. Misaka couldn't believe that she used her remote to her. She widened her eyes when Misaki also told her that she was not her enemy. Junko seems worried because Misaka was a fellow gecko or two. Misaka gave her a sudden jerking movement, then she said goodbye since there was nothing more for her to say. But before she could leave, she turned to them and said that she was surprised to hear that Misaki was interested in being a president. She asked her if she didn't hate that formal stuff, and her words hit the queen. Later on, they were walking when Kobayashi said that losing Misaka is a painful blow, but they need to watch out for anyone sowing discord. The cheapest, more effective strategy against them is tearing apart their cliques from within. She doubts if any of their girls are unfaithful, but they never knew what their enemy is capable of. Junko noticed that the queen was speechless and seemed to be in deep thoughts, so she cheered her up and said not to worry because whatever happens, she will have her by her side. So she continues the path that feels right to her. The queen smiled and was grateful to her. Then she told her that she will send her the script for tomorrow's speech so that she can practice. They were all surprised when out of the blue, Shirai came out. They were all happy to see her, but Junko observed that she didn't respond and just continued walking towards them. She just stared at Shirai, and when she noticed something, she immediately jumped and was about to attack her. But Shirai used her teleportation, and in an instant, she was behind her and put handcuffs on her wrist. Then Shirai told Junko that she was a commissioner, and she was under arrest on suspicion of electoral fraud. Shirai asked her to come with her, so the queen along with the two just stared at them walking away. Misaki furrowed her brows because she was clueless on what it's all about. First Misaka, and now Junko might be an enemy. The election activities began, so Misaka started to give some flyers to the students. However, as soon as Shirai opened the door and a girl saw Junko, she immediately pointed her finger at the latter, claiming that she was the one who threatened her. So Misaki abruptly uses her remote. That's why the girl suddenly stops and seems frozen. Shirai, who was about to stop her, was speechless when the queen told the girl to answer all of the questions truthfully. Then the girl stated that yesterday, she was called to an empty classroom and the lights went out while she waited. Then Junko spoke to her in the darkness. She demanded she should do as she said, or she would reveal her misdeeds. Shirai asks the girl about the misdeeds that she has done. The girl admits that she hijacked the clique building system where they had their workspace taken by emergency maintenance. Shirai asked her why she did that since it was an obstruction, or is she forced to do something illegal to keep it a secret? After the confession, Misaki asked the commissioner if the girl was in trouble too since it was proven, and she confessed. The girl continued that she was forced to sabotage the other candidates' cliques by that ringlet girl. The queen used her remote again to the girl and told the commissioner that disproving the memory of the girl would be difficult. When the two commissioners agreed with her, she asked about their plan. Junko was shocked when Shirai said that she will be banned from all elections and cliques activities, so she reasoned that she didn't do anything. The queen, who seemed dumbfounded, suddenly took out her remote and walked towards the girl. The two commissioners prepared themselves to protect the girl, so Junko called her attention and told not to worry about her. The queen covers her mouth and whispers something that makes her eyes widen. Then she turned to the commissioner and asked if they would release Junko if they proved that she was innocent. When the commissioner agreed with her, she turned to Junko and told not to worry and left everything to her, then left the room. When she is already outside the room, Shuri follows her and asks to assist her as long as it doesn't violate her duties. She knew that everything doesn't make sense because Junko could have broken free from her restraints so easily, and she isn't the type to threaten people. Shirai was confused when the queen laughed at her. Then she furrows her brow when the queen told her that she had a suspicion that she really intended to capture Junko and was making an internal compromise because she can read her mind. Misaki laughed at her because she didn't have to since she's easy to read. Her eyes widened when the queen praised her virtue ability. So she smirks at her and says that her flattery won't get her to join her clique. Then Misaki became serious and asked her to take care of Junko, so she promised that she would. But she can't neglect her duties no matter what the circumstances behind everything. She reminds the queen not to forget that. Misaki said not to worry because she is just as virtuous as her. Then she waved goodbye. Meanwhile, when Misaki was already outside, she called someone and told her that she felt like she was wearing her sexiest underwear on the morning of the big showdown. The caller asks her if she finds a connection to the inheritance. The caller suggested that she check the memories of every Takiwadai student, but she didn't agree because that would be like finding a needle in a haystack and would be too much work. The girl she was talking to is Maitori-san. She asks to end her fake political conflict right now. But she refused because it's none of Maitori's business. Anyway, the latter told her that the woman she beat up was linked to a lab that went under earlier. She also said that she is checking for information on the inheritance on her computer, and she wasn't great at it, so the cookies are still there. When Misaka heard the word cookies, she became confused, so Maitori explained to her that it's not the cookies that bake, they're records of her browsing history. Things sounded bad over there since there were a lot of hopeful business partners contacting Takiwadai through official and unofficial channels. After their conversation, she turned her phone off and let out a sigh. She seems like she hit with a thunderbolt when Tsukasa, who's covering her ears, suddenly asks if she was done. As a result, she stumbled on the ground while her legs were wide open. Tsukasa, who's worried, asks her if she is okay, then helps her to stand up. The latter explains that she covered her ears so she didn't hear what she was discussing, but she can erase her memory if she likes. The queen ignored her words and asked what she was doing there. In response, she told her that she was certain that she would never cheat and will help her to catch the real culprit. The queen didn't believe her since it sounded like she was plotting something. So Tsukasa told her that even though she's from another clique, a leader would never do anything without considering how other people might feel. She also added that the most important quality of a leader is to view the big picture. One must have a future vision for the organization and society. Maybe Misaki can win by cheating, but what can someone like that tell her of the future? The queen furrows her brow because she was insulted for suspecting her. She also asks about Misaka. In response, Tsukasa told her that it was for Misaka's own good and to clear up all misunderstandings. Everything she does in that election is her responsibility, and everything done by her members and cooperators are her responsibility too. That is what it means to lead. The queen gets it, but she makes it clear that she still refuses on her offer, then she turns around to leave. But Fukasa immediately grabbed her for being too stubborn. Then she took out her phone and showed to Misaki that she and Misaka are both suspected of making threats. The article is only on the school network, but the newspaper club could write an article about it, and it will spread through the school as a major scandal. Misaki furrowed her brow when Tsukasa told her that she might be fine, but what about her innocent clique member? But if the latter could join her to insist the accusations are untrue, then everyone would think they must be false. She also reminds her that it is for Junko and the rest of her clique. The queen agreed with her, but in one condition. The moment that she gets in her way, the alliance is off. The relic refers to something that was leaked from a now defunct lab. A malignant tumor that consumes a spur power, a precious stone that gathers life force. A secret technique to rearrange the braid of time. There are countless sketchy rumors that it surpasses the level 5S. The problem is, it supposedly has a close connection to someone at Takiwadai. Misaki started to investigate, but she left a related institute 4 days ago. They were quite the villains and some of their friends attacked 3 days ago. Anyway, the queen called Maitori to tell that she thought the 2 squares on their clothes were their organization's logo. The latter thought that too, but something bothered her bass eyes. It seems to have some kind of meaning. She also says that there's another related institute that looks suspicious, so she will sneak out. But the queen stops her since it's too dangerous so her personnel can handle it. Maitori-san agreed. Then she remembered the square. She told the queen that it's not squares, instead a cube. A lot of ideologies treat 3D shapes as special, and if the 2 cubes are linked to some kind of ideology, it could connect to someone at Takiwadai. The queen was speechless. Maitori-san also added that if someone has gotten weirdly close to her, she'd call that circumstantial evidence to suspect. But for now, she has to focus on her game as a presidential candidate so she won't be caught off guard. However, Misaki thought that she needed to find that relic identity and the related person at Takiwadai while dealing with the election. Tsukasa notices that Misaki stops, so she also stops and asks if she needs anything. The latter stopped because she was thinking that she already checked for anything unusual at Takiwadai. And she seems to suspect Tsukasa, but she erases it thinking that people can change. Tsukasa noticed that she was suspecting her, but about the presidential fraud, so she told that she can use her mental power to check, and she won't resist. The queen told Tsukasa that there could be a trap triggered by a physiological power, or one could use it as an excuse to call a commissioner on her. She can think of a dozen different ways that go badly. Tsukasa responded that she was too cautious, and she didn't trust her at all even though she worked so hard. The queen immediately replies that she can't think of a single reason to trust her. Then she asks if she thinks that she didn't notice that she was bringing her to the wrong place because they were going to Building 3, but they are in Building 2. She doesn't know what kind of trap she has set, so she believes that she will never trust her after that. To the queen's surprise, Tsukasa told her that she was just testing her. She was worried about Junko, and it might distract her, but she guessed that she was wrong. So she was about to lead away, but her eyes widened when the queen told her that it's again the wrong way. The queen was upset, and asked if she had any sense of direction, so Tsukasa pointed in the opposite direction. The latter was confused when the queen laughed, and said that she was actually right in the first direction. So she turns around and asks the queen if she enjoys toying with girls' hearts and calls her Miss Biggest Clique. Misaki replies by blaming herself for falling to it and calls her as Miss Student Council. The queen was irritated since they were wasting time over nonsense. So she shooed her away like a dog and told that she would lead the way. On their way to the 3rd floor, Misaki seemed to be having a hard time climbing the 3rd floor as she was breathing quickly and loudly through her mouth. She noticed that Tsukasa was staring at her, so she angrily asked her what. The latter smiles at her and reasons that she realized now why she never saw her at the gym class. Misaki gritted her teeth and told that if she had something to say, just say it and call her Miss No Direction. The latter quickly replied that there's none and called her Miss Unathletic. So they started to argue about the GPS, mocking their body until they lost their breath because of the anger that they felt. In the end, they both agree to stop because they're wasting their time. So they continue to wander around that building, out of the blue. Tsukasa asked Misaki if she was planning on a traditional investigation. When the latter agree, Tsukasa learns that she must really care about her clique. She also added that if she only cared about Junko, she could just tear the election apart, but she won't, because she knew how much her clique member cares about the election, and they're devoted to her. She furrowed her brow and blamed Tsukasa that she was the one who pushed the clique to the election. She was doing it for them because she thinks of them as her arms and legs. She suddenly thought that she shouldn't let her arms and legs restrict her movement ability. She looks outside of the building and asks herself what she is thinking. Later on, she told Tsukasa that she didn't find anything new other than confirming that the threat really happened. But from what she saw of the victim's residual thoughts, she never got a clear look at the culprit's trace. Tsukasa found it odd because it was clear when she read her mind directly. She asks if someone could have added Junko's face to her mind after the fact. But it was only Misaki's power that could alter memories like that. Either way, they can't confirm that Junko was the culprit from the event. But the queen was not sure because that event feels like a common trick used with psychological powers. They would know the contradictions would be found out quickly. So if they intentionally left it there for her to find out, then it's a message that challenges her to solve the mystery. Tsukasa asks her if she's overthinking. The queen replies that it's just her opinion, but for now, they have to assume the unidentifiable person she saw is the real version. Misaki fell into deep thoughts asking herself if the culprit wanted her to solve it. She had a bad feeling about it and feels like she'll find a further trap once she does it. But she has no other choice since she needs to rescue Junko and the clique. She didn't notice that Tsukasa was already talking to her to go to Kamino-sen. Tsukasa widens her eyes when she asks who the girl is. That's why the latter yells at her and explains that Kamino is one of the candidates and from Kamino clique, which is the victim's clique. Tsukasa also reminds her that she needs to improve her behavior because she can't get lazy when her girls are working so hard. Misaki furrowed her brow because Kobayashi always reminded her of those. The latter seems confused when Tsukasa said that the aid making up for her queen's flaws is a precious thing to do. Seconds have passed, but it looks like Misaki was still confused, so she asked Tsukasa what's the meaning of her words. So the latter explains to her that nothing is more precious than brilliant girls providing valuable service for their community, and she could watch it all day long. It looks like the queen misunderstood it, thinking that Tsukasa has some kind of intimacy with the other girls. That's why the latter widens her eyes and seems frustrated for insulting her. She angrily told her that she must never place herself in the middle of that garden of maidens because flowers are to be admired and not picked. She also added that Takiwara is a garden of those precious relationships. She envies the school from the bottom of her heart. From the walls and ceilings where it all sees the preciousness that she can't see herself. She wants to be Takiwara. Misaki was shocked because she found Tsukasa as a weirdo for admiring their school. The day before Chapter 1, students were busy giving flyers to other students. Tsukasa thought that things are a lot livelier now that the election has begun, and the school is even more precious than normal. But an evil smile forms on her face while reminding herself not to get drunk on that preciousness. Then she heard some students chattering. A student named Kamiko walks towards the two students and asks what's wrong. A student explained that Misaka was stunned all day. She isn't even responding to her confession of love. She shook Misaka because she might have depleted her battery after pumping her full of too much electric love. Tsukasa also heard that when those two girls fought over recruiting a student, she saw something fly away from her during their fight. 3 students were trying to find that thing but didn't know where it could possibly fall. Then Kamino-sama walked past the two ladies and said that she can't ignore a schoolmate who is feeling blue and believes the crafts club has a useful spur for that. The two ladies were clueless at her words but didn't speak. She also added that she was sure resolving it quickly is also what Misaka wants from the bottom of her heart. The two ladies abruptly agreed. Then Kamino walked away. Tsukasa recognizes Misaka's strap as a prize for a handy antenna pair contract. She thought that she could ask a grandpa's friend and did it to get a level 5 on her side. So she immediately was about to call her grandpa, but the scene of Misaka earlier couldn't be erased from her mind. However, Misaka was walking on the hallways looking dumbfounded. She searched so hard yesterday, but couldn't find it. She was confused if someone already picked it up or was sent to anti-skill. She held her head looking crazy, thinking that it might be carried away by a crow or squirrel. But her deep thoughts suddenly stop when someone calls her. She already knew that the two girls were from Kamino clique, so she immediately told them that she was not interested in joining their clique. The girl took out something in her pocket. Then she showed the strap to Misaka, asking if she recognized it. She couldn't finish her sentence when Misaka abruptly said that she will join their clique or whatever else just to get back the strap. The two girls were surprised because they didn't know how much she treasured that thing. When Misaka finally takes a hold of the thing, she closes her eyes and finds relief. She felt sorry for losing it and for being lonely. Then she opened her eyes to look at the thing, and the two girls widened their eyes when she told them that the thing wasn't her. She suddenly knelt down, feeling devastated that she seemed to have lost that thing. The two went crazy and kept on apologizing, though they reproduce it perfectly. From that time, she seems to be losing her mind and just sits down alone. Misaki and Junko saw her talking to herself. Time has passed, but she stays still until someone calls her name. When she saw the thing, she widened her eyes in shock. Her body was shaking when she took the thing and held it as if it was the most important thing in her life. She had teary eyes and thanked Tsukasa, but when she looked at her, she was stunned to see that she was dirty. So she took her phone so that she could see her own appearance. As a result, Tsukasa slaps her own face to wipe the dirt on it, then she tells her that she almost got lost. Misaka seems bewildered, so she asks her where she went. In response, Tsukasa told her that she went to the easiest place to get lost on campus, the Schwarzwald of eternal darkness found behind the school. Mikasa widened her eyes and made it clear that she was talking about the artificial woods for their forestry lesson. She furrowed her brows because she knew how serious they are for that stupid election. Tsukasa threatened Misaka if she wanted that thing. She needed to help her clique, so she immediately snatched the thing on the latter's hand and was about to walk away. But Misaka stopped her and claimed that she was not complaining. Tsukasa didn't turn around, but she claimed that she was so sure that she would never abandon an opportunity because her precious aura was too powerful. Misaka was bewildered, then burst into laughter because Tsukasa seemed weird. That's why the latter was furious, yelling at her not to laugh. But Tsukasa realized that Misaka was smiling again, and she was glad to see her in that way. On the other hand, Maitori-san wearing a black clothes enters a building. She thought that Misaki can be stubborn about the weirdest things, but her liquid shadow can be remotely controlled. It's a perfect power for infiltration. Then she saw a vent and went down there. She saw a few people unconscious and observed that it doesn't look like gas that made them unconscious, although they have no injuries. She was thinking if it was an Esper power or did someone already sneak in before her. Then her device on her legs suddenly vibrates and seems to be reacting to something, then she sees a box. Since she was not fond of vibrations, she asked her liquid shadow to check the inside of the box. But she widens her eyes when a voice asks her if she was an Esper. She abruptly stood up, but the voice told her to relax since all it wanted was to talk. She was confused if it was a voice, a vibration, or she was hearing it through a conduction. The voice came into the box and said that it might look like that, but it was one told the city's Esper, the number 1 level 5. It looks like that box contains unknown history. A mysterious metal found nowhere in nature is said to be created when powerful Esper abilities collide. Someone named it metal. It was thought to be no more than a rumor, but a large quantity was created during a certain incident. That day marked increased activity, but those connected to the mysterious and rarely mentioned previous generations and a group bearing the symbol of 2 squares, and the shadow metal sought by that group is said to exist in cubic crystals. However, there was meeting in a room led by Kamino-san along with the others. She told them that Misaki and Tsukasa currently hold positions 1 and 2 in the election and have apparently joined forces. She asked a girl named Iori-san Mashiro, current number 5, if it was her idea. The latter agreed and asked why she bothers with something so obvious because they should know it. Kamino-san continued and told them that Building 3 is deserted after school. They're separated from their cliques, so that is their chance to act. Tatsuki Mayuri agrees with her because first Misaki and now Tsukasa are as crazy as ever. She also added if she'd let her stick electrodes in there to see. A girl named Kokuchu Mayui told everyone to calm down, then she delightedly suggested to them that she will bake a cake for everyone, then they can all have a friendly chat. Iori-san Mashiro became irritated about her idea. She also asks Kamino about Inubishi because she was not in their meeting. Kumamori Tazuna seems not to listen to them and just continues to play with her cubic toy. Tatsuki Mayuri told them that their main problem is them reaching the majority rule if their cliques join, and that would ensure their loss, so they need to act before it's too late. When Kokuchu Mayui asks to talk to them first, Tatsuki Mayuri forms an evil look and responds that they can never know what's real when mental out gets involved, not without sticking something on their brain. Then Kokuchu Mayui and Iori-san Mashiro start to argue if Misaki was indeed a good girl or not, because Iori-san suspected her from the beginning when she suddenly starts a clique without attending their meetings, and her clique just keeps growing. And now hers is the bigger clique, and it's too impossible. Tatsuki Mayuri agreed with her and said that anyone would think she's cheating and turning everyone into dolls. So Kamino told everyone to calm down, but Iori-san Mashiro smirked at her because the election is stressful enough as it is. So they asked Kumamori what she thinks. According to the latter, in the election rule page 2, a presidential candidate must be physically and mentally capable of the presidential duties, which means one is disqualified if one is hospitalized in an accident, and that can forcibly remove a candidate. Iori-san Mashiro abruptly said that that's what she wanted to say. Kamino smiles because it seems they were suggesting that they should attack Misaki and Tsukasa in secret. Iori-san Mashiro stared at her because there's nothing else she meant. She also told her to stop pretending because Kamino was thinking the same thing. That's why she gathered all of them to rope them into it. The latter laugh harder because they mustn't turn into a gang of bullies, especially so soon after Misaki troubles with Junko. It would be just salt in the wound. Iori-san Mashiro doesn't want to talk with Kamino, but they do have a common interest. They just have to send those two to the hospital. Kokuchu Mayui and Tatsuki Mayuri were surprised because it's not necessary and too dangerous. The latter said that their power is banned, but using combat itself is not, and Iori-san Mashiro could even turn into a battle royale where the last girl standing is the president. They did say there are special rewards for someone who can put on the perfect show. And the best way to seize power has always been bloody violence. Kokuchu Mayui seemed worried and told everyone that they can't do anything dangerous because they made a commissioner to prevent exactly their plan. Iori-san Mashiro lifts her finger and points it to Kokuchu Mayui and says to cut her goody-goody act because who says they have to find out. The three noticed that they were having a heated argument, yet Kumamori Tazuna was still playing with her toy, so Kamino-san asked her to put down her toy. But Kumamori Tazuna didn't pay attention to them and still played with her toy. Then her eyes widened because the toy suddenly scattered as the result of continuously twisting. The other girls seemed worried since it was too close. Kamino told her that she will pay for that later, but she first needs to focus on the meeting. But she ignored her because Kumamori Tazuna took out another cubic toy. Anyway, Iori-san Mashiro seems bothered by her mask and hood. Besides, it is rude, so she asks her to put down at least the hood. The reason she put on the hood is because she cut her bangs too much, and she was hiding it since it's too weird for her. But the other commented that her bangs look great on her. However, Kamino claps her hands to call their attention to move on to their topic, because there's another option that she hoped to discuss with them. Tatsuki Mayuri made it clear that there's a point in that meeting. Kamino agreed and said that the problem is the majority rule, and there's a way to negate that rule. Iori-san Mashiro couldn't believe it and asked if she's just making a trick. Kamino smiles and explains to them that the election is held in 2 phases, but if there are only 3 cliques running. A special phase 2 kicked in, and it's different again for just 2 cliques. The special phase 2 holds 2 elections for the student body. They choose 2 candidates the first time and just 1 the second time. In that case, the majority rule does not apply because fewer candidates make it easier for votes to gather with a single one. So if they all withdraw and bet everything on her, they would place second in the first vote, and they could turn things around for the second vote if they play their cards right. That is the one and only way to legally achieve victory. So she asks the rest if they are willing to withdraw and help her to become a president. But it looks like the 4 disagreed with her. Iori-san Mashiro seems irritated, claiming that she would never do that for her or anyone else for that matter. Tatsuki Mairi asked her to dissect her first and then consider her suggestion. Kokuchu Mayui and Kumamori Tazuna both disagree with her. But it didn't bother Kamino and told every clique leader thinks she's number 1, and she understood it because she's the same. They all trembled in fear when Kamino-san released some power. She asks them if they do understand what it meant to reject her offer. Then she laughed and said that they don't have time to form a coalition and act as a group. She even asked them if they were prepared to bloody their hands. Iori-san Mashiro responded that she already said that she was while Kumamori Tazuna put on her hood again and said that she didn't want to take part in their plan. She stood up. That's why Kamino asked her if she was giving up. She claims that she was not, and leaving room for interpretation in the election rule was probably intentional. She thinks the election is secretly about finding the hidden win condition, and she has no other way of winning. She walked to the door and was about to leave when Iori-san Mashiro told her that not stopping them made her involved. She simply said that she was aware of that, then she left the room. Kamino said that Kumamori Tazuna left evidence, so she can't betray them. The real problem is the no-show in Ubishi. Tatsuki Mairi replied that she was not coming because she's nursing her wounded pride. Kokuchu Mayui was speechless, so Kamino continued that the previous scene doesn't change what they must do, so she asks them if they can defeat Misaki and Tsukasa. Iori-san Mashiro immediately responded that in a direct battle, there's no way since Misaki's power is straight up cheating. But together, they can manage to win, and they will be her worst nightmare. On the other hand, Misaki and Tsukasa were still in the building. The latter asks the queen if she still can if they took the stairs back. The queen thanked for her very rude concern, then she asked if she could carry her down if she said yes. The two start a quarrel again. That's why they failed to notice something on their back. Tsukasa kept taking everything Misaki told her inside of a room, but then, she suddenly stopped and became enraged and threw a bag on the ground when she realized that she was doing all the work and the queen didn't help. Misaki reasons that she was the one who said to check the adjacent classroom. Tsukasa, who was still irritated, told her that it's not a reason to make her servant. They still couldn't find anything suspicious, but the queen's eyes widened when she noticed something. Tsukasa follows her eyes and looks at the ceiling. Misaki had a bad feeling like she was bristling all over. Something is very odd coming their way and assumed that it was in his spur power. Her eyes widened when Tsukasa suddenly pushed her and touched her 2 big mountains. Then a black hole appears on the ceiling and releases a power between them. That's why Tsukasa pushes her. As a result, the queen bumped her body on the window. They were both curious about what it was. The two haven't moved in yet when Tsukasa seems to know what's coming, so she immediately asks Misaki to make a 2-step to the right. Even though confused, Misaki follows her. Then in an instant, another blow of power falls on the ground. Tsukasa exclaimed that there's another one coming, so she asked Misaki to make a 3-step on the right and 5 steps back to avoid it. Misaki follows her, thinking what is happening. First, the attack was strange, and then Tsukasa can somehow predict it. But it's too convoluted for Tsukasa to be behind it. The latter told her to make 5 steps on her left, but she was pointing her finger on her right. That's why confusion hit Misaki and stepped on her own feet. As a result, she fell hard on the ground. The latter abruptly stood up and confronted Tsukasa for telling her the wrong way. She yells at her for not knowing the difference between left and right. Tsukasa fought back, claiming that she's just looking for things to complain about even though she already saved her. The two stared evilly at each other. Then they notice another blow of power rush towards them, so they quickly jump backward to avoid it. They both turned their gaze in the hallway, so they decided to work together. Misaki was curious on what kind of power makes Tsukasa a level 5, then she remembered her conversation with a boy who was curious about her mental power. She explains that some have a unique ability like creating a non-existent form of matter, and some are the ultimate version of a common sort of power like electricity or electric wave, and her power is the latter that gives her control of people's minds. She also added that there are rumors that there was once a level 5 who had the power of spatial control. They could create a special territory by enveloping a certain space, and that territory was supposedly so strange that anyone who entered it would feel an indescribable chill. She was not sure, but she felt that moment a shudder. She was confused if that could be a spatial control. Behind the scenes of the attack, Iori-san Mashiro was screaming. She even punched and kicked in the air out of frustration. Then she lay on the floor because she couldn't hit Misaki and Tsukasa. The two were good, that's why she can't stand it. She was confused about what Tsukasa was doing, or that it was some kind of precog. She will be in trouble if Misaki can predict her actions, so she asked Tatsuki Mairi to change their plan. The latter was surprised, so she asked if there was a problem. In response, Iori-san told her that there's a big one and her method is too slow, and she's getting impatient. She wanted to take advantage and saw them drowning right in an instant. But she abruptly covered her mouth when Tatsuki Mairi made it clear that she wanted a corpse blue with cyanosis because it was a nasty stuff. She even told her not to call her Iori-san because her name is Io-chin. Tatsuki Mairi ignored her and said that her impatience is a bad habit of hers, then she left her alone. Iori-san furrowed her brows, thinking that calling her Iori-san was much better for her. Then she decided to do phase 2. Furthermore, it looks like the two were already trapped in the building. No matter how slammed Tsukasa the wall, they would still need an excavator to get through it. When Misaki didn't respond, Tsukasa turned to look at her with irritation since the phone wasn't working either, and she was so close to seeing her precious girls rushing to save their queen. Anyway, the queen furrows her brows because she can't access the internet the same as Tsukasa, so she assumes that the attacker is jamming their signal. The fire alarm is down too. If the other stairs are the same, they have to break a window to escape. They notice that the attack stopped, and it only happens when they're setting up something even worse. Misaki noticed that Tsukasa was staring at her bag, so she explained that it has no room left over after all the remotes and girly secrets. That's why she has no tools in there to contact someone. Then they started to argue again about who's useless. But then, Misaki suddenly froze when she stepped into something that jiggled. Her eyes widened and quickly held Tsukasa when they found out that it was a gummy monster, and there's a ton that's coming. The latter instruct to get behind her. That's why she failed to notice a gummy monster and hit her face. As a result, she fell on the ground. She found that it's only soft and squishy. In fact, it's kinda cute, which is why Misaki became irritated since those are monsters. So Tsukasa assumed that it boiled Misaki's brain for being angry. The latter was startled when one jumped into her. She furrows her brow and immediately pushes it, then runs to avoid them while Tsukasa sits still and asks if those monsters want to play. However, the latter widens her eyes and begs the queen if she could use her power to communicate with it. But the queen refuses because her power doesn't work on those creepy things. Then she notices something in the hallway coming their way. They both widened their eyes when they saw a large gummy monster. That's why Tsukasa immediately said that she was not trying to kidnap the monster's kids. Misaki stops her nonsense and instructs her to run, but the problem is the way is already blocked by the monster. Tsukasa immediately went to the window to open it, but she learned that there's an invisible wall on the window. Misaka furrowed her brow because she was right about her feeling that they were surrounded after their phones went to a jam, and the reason was to control the space. On the other hand, little did they know that Kamino was watching them from the opposite building and was using her power to control the space. Anyway, one of Kamino's girls went into a place where Kobayashi and the other gathered. One of them approached her and thanked her for the pancakes that she gave the other day, so she asks if they need anything. However, Iori-san was surprised when she found out that the footage was cut out briefly. She was confused if the camera did shift or did one of the water balls hit it. But if it was physically, then she suspects an Epper's power or human force. Either way, since the two escaped, there was a third party involved. On the other hand, the two escaped and hid in a room. But since the monster kept following them and banging on the door, they might break through soon, so they have to make their move. Misaki, who's catching her breath, sits on the floor while thinking that they have multiple enemies. They must be from other candidate cliques and an alliance of level 3S and level 4S. They jammed their signal to prevent her girls from rescuing her. She found all the Takawadiya students really smart since they have planned several steps ahead. She was sad and planned to give up. Tsukasa notices her expression, but later on she calls for the queen because there was something above her that was about to splash. And it seems like she didn't have the courage to avoid it. Misaka saw in her phone about the alliance of Tsukasa and Misaki. She furrowed her brow because the news was getting more annoying, even the talk about cheating earlier. She wouldn't have cooperated with the election if she only knew that Misaki was involved. She thought that maybe they are trying to pair her with Misaki, but that won't happen because she only let them use her name. But she was glad that they've stopped asking for votes because there's nothing good comes of dealing with the cliques. She suddenly stopped because she was curious about how they got the photo of the two. Then she notices 3 maids who seem annoyed for announcing an emergency maintenance out of the blue. They've all locked them out of the entire building. That's why one of the maids has a suspicion that they are up to something that they don't want to see in broad daylight. The other one said that the Takawadiya's building might have a classic look, but they're really high-tech. If they splashed water on the exposed tech during inspection, they will be charged an eye-popping fine. Not even selling their bodies won't be enough. Misaka, who heard everything, assumes that practical training at maid school sounds rough. On the other hand, Misaki couldn't get out of the water. Tsukasa was worried, asking the water not to eat her. She thought that it's getting tougher since Misaki seems to be running out of breath. The latter felt she's weak and only had 3 minutes left before she could pass out. That liquid is so salty, and it happened to be bad for her. Seconds left, and she couldn't think of anything until a loud, deep resonant sound could be heard. Tsukasa jumps in joy when 2 girls arrive on time and catch the queen. She assumed that they followed them and already got into the building. The 2 girls noticed that their queen was weak and got worried, so they yelled at her to remind how precious her body was and her overall just to keep her alive. They help her stand up when she gathers her strength. According to them, those agar monsters are a lot of trouble, so things are a real mess downstairs. If only they were Enmitsu, they could put cream on them and eat them. The queen asks them if they break through the sugar sculpture power at the stairs. The 2 agree, but her piercing wall couldn't get through the invincible barrier surrounding the building. It's weirder than the sugar agar swarm and more powerful than a wall of air. They didn't notice that Tsukasa seemed trapped in that wall of air and was yelling for help. Furthermore, Misaki thought that those are a manners lesson about using the front door and not escaping through the window, so their goal is the first floor. She immediately instructs Kiai and Mei to clean up that dessert and clear the path. They immediately followed the instructions and released power to strike the monsters. Tsukasa was stunned when she observes that aside from Junko, there were 2 more fighters in Misaki's clique. She adores them because Kiai's power is piercing that creates a wall of nitrogen next to her which pierces through anything already there. She also can stand on the nitrogen wall by continually creating them and can run through the air. Mei's power is wild power, where she skips the acceleration process to reach top speed right away. The impossible acceleration creates a fighting style more striking than any other. She can move fast and every action packs more of a punch. It's hard on her body, but her flexible muscles can redirect the force. Their strength is indisputable. That's why even Misaka couldn't escape them. She seems satisfied by how the two fight and finds them incredible. Furthermore, it looks like Iori-san was not yet finished and was just waiting for something to happen. Mei and Kiai seemed horrified when something appeared and didn't want to touch it. Tsukasa yells at them to jump back while gritting her teeth in terror. The two were trapped and the Reaper raised his scythe. She doesn't know what to do, so she takes out her remote. It will decide if those two will live or die. The best option is evasion, defense, or escape. Yet the two are still fighting for their lives, but they were surprised when they observed that the piercing wall can't block it. They don't feel like they are hitting anything. Mei used her wild speed schooler muscle and went speechless when she saw that in an instant, the ground crashed. According to Iori-san, that is what happens if she expands the water balls hidden under the floor, and only clique leaders are allowed in the dueling ring. The two couldn't control their bodies and felt like falling. So Misaki used her remote and was trying to send a message. Then the two looked at each other, and it seemed they understood that they needed to help the queen, even if they didn't survive. They gathered their strength and moved through the crashed stone, entering one side and exit on the other. Iori-san, who's watching, commented that they did well for getting through the water ball. She doesn't want to reduce the number of balls. Instead, she needs a thicker layer this time. Misaki, who seems worried about Kiai and Mei, is suddenly shoved by Tsukasa when something emerges right in front of her. The latter looks like being hit. That's why the queen shouted for her name. An intense verbal battle is fought behind their smiles. Misaki's clique versus Kamino's clique. The latter's member asks if they are ready to admit that Junko took one of their girls. Misaki's members respond that they have never heard of innocence until proven guilty. Their instructions of the ordinary process sounds like bad faith to them. While doing so, Kobayashi used her telepathy multi-search and saw 4 people behind cover for a total of 6. She thought that breaking through without a plan would be difficult, so she asked Asato-san to keep up her verbal assault to figure out what they wanted because she didn't know how to handle them. She doubts they would normally make an attack there, but they are from Kamino clique. While the girl from Kamino clique thought that they had no idea what they might do. Letting their ordinary behavior leave room for doubt is part of their strategy, because she knew Kobayashi would have an accurate grasp of the situation. Besides, they don't need to fight there. She remembers her conversation with Kamino that says providing them with options will restrict their thinking. Ideally, they want a situation where any fighting would be their responsibility, and she, Kokachu-san, should understand it. What she wants from her is obvious, so she wants her to be careful because she doubts Mizuki would fall for a trap so easily. She thought that Kamino's worries were nothing, that their stalling of her clique's 2 members is working even better than expected. They can keep on worrying over what to do. However, Mizuki was worried about Tsukasa, so she immediately ran to her to help. The latter checked her first before she noticed that she was bleeding. Misaki helped her to get up, but then they were both surprised when another attack was about to happen. Iori-san, who's watching, was confused when she saw that thing because she didn't order it. She asked Tatsuki Mairi not to act on her own since there was so much blood on Tsukasa. She was worried that she might die. Tatsuki Mairi became serious and asked if she knew a paper folded 42 times would reach the moon. Since Iori-san was mad and didn't want trivia, she explained that she was bound to see some blood if she wanted to defeat those too much, as if she reached the moon with folded paper. Iori-san was furious because she was only supposed to break their legs, but her eyes widened when Misaki suddenly touched the water ball and crashed on the ground. Iori-san was frustrated when the water ball didn't break into pieces. She was curious if Misaki did take the control out of her because she even had the guts to taste it. Since there was a speaker on the ceiling, the latter asked her if she was listening. Since Misaki didn't know that she was Iori-san, she calls her a jelly dumpling user, which is why Iori-san became enraged, claiming that they are water balls so she doesn't have to make them sound tasty. Misaki ignored her and told that the taste is 0.9% saline that's similar to human fluids. She assumes that it's probably a necessary part of her power, and if it's similar to human, then it's the kind of human that allowed her to just barely take control. It looks like Iori-san lost her control and shouted at Misaki not to expand the definition of human since she was not God. The latter bit her own tongue and told Iori-san that it was a lie. She doesn't know how she actually did it. Maybe it was after seeing so much blood on Tsukasa, and it's an exception to the rule. Mental out is a multi-tool of psychological power, and its many options make it complex. Her physical and mental power influences it a lot. She doesn't know how far that influences, so she needs to use the remote to control it. She could think of it like a chain that controls a monstrous power. She doesn't like what happened, but the information is so ambiguous, and her only weapon are her words. She learned one more thing from Kiai and Mei's observation ability. That attack sent physical bullets every which way but having them pass through objects. But that isn't enough to explain Tsukasa's injury. If they passed through anything, they could never actually harm anything, and her clothing was in fact unharmed. Which means the human body is the only thing it can't pass through. Iori-san and Tatsuki Mairi widened their eyes in surprise. If it did, the Asper's body wouldn't survive and would fall into pieces because the bullet is the Asper itself. And that mystery attack was a suicide rush by the Asper. Then Tatsuki Mairi asked her if she did hit her where it hurt, since what she stated was a guess only. Tsukasa widened her eyes when she saw Tatsuki Mairi gradually emerging on the ground. She threatened Misaki if she uses her remote to her, she will kill her, or if she keeps staring, then she will charge a fee. Misaki responds that she doesn't carry around tip money since Tatsuki Mairi was only wearing a bathing suit that shows her curvy body. Tatsuki Mairi mocks her and asks her to strip too. Then if she is not enough, she will throw in Iori-sen Mishiro to strip too. That's why the latter became furious for doing a negotiation with the use of her body aside from exposing her full name. Anyway, Misaki asked Tatsuki Mairi if she thought she could escape her power if she didn't use her remote. She was naive if she thinks so. It will be a game over for her once she learns her true identity. Tsukasa interrupts them and asks why they are doing those. Tatsuki Mairi told them that it's because of the majority rule. They have no choice but to join with the top. She was sure that they already predicted it. Misaki asked Tsukasa if she predicted it, but the latter said that she was not since she was too focused on saving Junko. So she told Tatsuki Mairi that they are not planning a coalition, so she asked her to leave. But it looks like it's not that easy because she doesn't look like the person who would leave easily. So they start to mock each other with their traits. And they both thought that they couldn't stand each other because they were the same. Tatsuki Mairi told them that she can't let them go after they contact something that they shouldn't have. Misaki frankly asks if it was the relic. That's why Tatsuki Mairi widens her eyes and asks if she was really serious. The queen agreed with her and told about the student council president election's hidden rules. That there are some rumored secret win conditions found outside the election itself. The sketchiest of the bunch is the relic to be hidden in Takiwadai. And that treasure is said to give each president a hidden power. Tatsuki Mairi slightly scratched her big bumper and said that it's laughable because people who rely on silly rumors are called diggers. And the biggest clique are worried about those diggers. The queen remained silent when she also added that she was too cautious. Misaki thought that it's never a good sign when rumors like that come to the forefront, especially when they have the same name as the source of the trouble they are searching for. She was bewildered because there was something wrong with the school, or were they hiding something? While she was staring at Tatsuki Mairi stretching her body, all she knows is that she has perfectly reasonable power, and the presence of the previous level 5 that she senses is already gone. That means they can defeat them. Tatsuki Mairi wears earbuds. She smiles when Iori-san tells her that she and Misaki will surely hit off, but they're still in trouble. It's because she stole her water balls. However, someone wanted to observe them. The skeleton, muscle, height and build, fat distribution, and so on. Then Tsukasa Mairi suddenly jumps because she needs to draw an accurate image of the human body in her mind if she wants to tear them apart. Then she went into a phase where she is able to penetrate the floor. Tsukasa was stunned when she saw Tatsuki Mairi disappear to the ground, and she couldn't move her body in shock. That's why Misaki immediately jumps into her to avoid the power that's coming her way. The latter was worried when she saw the evil smile of Tatsuki Mairi. She was curious what led to that level of joyful and violence ability. They didn't know that the spy was already hiding and watching them. She was recording on her phone their every move. But it looks like she's in trouble too after seeing that clique leader's deadly game. The spy found a stone like a gem, and was the nicest one she found that day. She was always the one who found those things. That's why her young mind was convinced that she has a special talent. One day her companion found something weird. And those with real talent, were on another level. She wasn't protagonist material, and that realization led her to stay behind the scenes as a side character. She hated it, but she did pretty well in that role. That's why she was irritated because she was in trouble after joining the Shokyuhu clique as a spy. Her jaw dropped when she saw how dangerous the event was, asking if the queen was actually a camouflage warrior race. Then she noticed a jelly dumpling along with a pail and broom. Then an idea came to her mind. She throws it to create a sound, and she continues to do so. She wants to hide, but if she stays there, she'll be killed as collateral damage in one of Tatsuki Mairi's attacks. She observes that things are getting worse when she looks at Tsukasa and Misaki. Then in her mind, the latter told her that it's a chance for her to escape. So she slowly takes a step, but to her surprise, a jelly dumpling attacks her right on her face. As a result, she was already inside the jelly dumpling and was spinning around. But the three were astonished when someone broke the jelly dumpling for the spy to be able to get away from it. After that, the spy abruptly smiles at the two. But she notices the icy look on the queen's face. So in her mind, she asks not to give up because it's not hopeless until they're actually dead. She needs a perfect excuse to explain what she is doing there. So she abruptly stood up and said that she was there to rescue them. But she knew they would never buy it. Anyway, on the first floor of the building, Kiai gathered her strength and struck it when she noticed something on the place. Then she along with Mei saw Kokuchu Mayui calmly sitting on a chair inside of a transparent small box that looked like a barrier. Kiai furrowed her brow when Kokuchu Mayui pretended that she was scared of their sudden arrival. Mei reminded her to check her ear because they were wearing earbuds to communicate. But she was confused because the signal is being jammed, so how can they use it? Kokuchu Mayui heard them, so she showed them the earbuds that let them talk inside the building conveniently. She suddenly scratched her head because that's supposed to be a secret. She also revealed that there's a secret way of talking to people outside, but her eyes widen in irritation because of being clumsy telling them the secret. Mei was frozen when Kokuchu Mayui announced that they were being checkmates. Because if they are there, it means they were forced to leave their queen. And that sounds like a stupid mistake for her. Kiai thought that it may be true, but she was more concerned about the barrier that is the same as the one that covers the building. She was bewildered if that was the power of Kokuchu Mayui. Mei was sweating because she sensed some weird pressure. Kokuchu Mayui suddenly laughs at their frightening look. Then a black smoke covers her. She was holding a book and asked them what they thought. Mei suddenly held herself because the place became creepy, and she was shaking in the chill. The black smoke was coming out of the barrier, so she told the two that they keep on talking because everything will be over soon. On the other hand, Tsukasa was asking the spy if she really did block the attack with her power. The spy didn't know what to say, but the queen knew that her leather bag saved her. Then Tsukasa yelled at the queen when Tatsuki Mairi was going to blow her a massive power. So she immediately used her leather bag to avoid it, and she was right. Tsukasa dropped her jaw, but the queen ignored her instead, asking the spy if her bag was real leather. When the spy said that yes it was, Misaki suddenly smiles because it wasn't the human body and Tatsuki Mairi's power can't pass through, although it's just a wild guess. Thinking back, she wasn't passing through her swimsuit either. So she asks them what a human body, a real leather, and a swimsuit have in common. The answer is carbon. She probably can't pass through anything with carbon. Or maybe protein. Tatsuki Mayuri was amazed by how smart the queen was, but she was not yet finished. Then she immediately strikes them simultaneously, so the queen and the spy immediately avoid it using their leather bags. She told them that she was glad that they're making it a duet that makes her dance worthy. In response, the queen asks her if she isn't hopeless now that their defense has doubled. The spy widened her eyes, asking the queen not to provoke Tatsuki Mayuri, but it looks like the queen already did because Tatsuki Mayuri was going to sharp the edges of her power. Then she asked if they're done with their tearful goodbyes. Misaki just laughed at her because she wanted to see how long her confidence lasts. Those words made the spy nervous because she knew she would be dead. On the other hand, Iori-san was bothered because those bags won't last forever. If someone as smart as Tatsuki Mayuri could possibly do something, if the latter's choice has no value, then the choice she didn't make must be what really matters most. Her eyes widened when it looked like she figured out something, so she immediately called Tatsuki Mayuri and told her that she won't help her if she takes that too far because they haven't used the most analog method. But the latter just mocked her for losing her water ball. Iori-san became irritated because she wasn't sulking. She gritted her teeth because she hates talking to her, but what she hates most is losing even more. However, Tsukasa seemed to be losing her breath and was moving unsteadily and was about to collapse. Luckily, she leaned on Misaki. That's why she didn't fall to the ground. The latter seems worried when she found out that she was anemic, so she hopes that she has a plan for it. The spy was worried because they could only just barely respond to the attacks with Tsukasa's prediction. With that, she can't stay and needs to run away. But her eyes widened when Tsukasa told her to run because protecting underclassmen is an upperclassman's privilege. She jumped into fear when Tsukasa also added that she does hate rejecting her offer, though they need all the help they can get. Her eyes widened when the queen also added that she actually came there to help, which she appreciates. She was sweating because she didn't know if the queen was brainwashing her into a human shield or to make a suicide attack as a diversion. But she suddenly froze when the queen whispered to her that she intended to win that battle and asked for her help. Furthermore, Tatsuki Mayuri noticed them, and she knew that Misaki was up to something. She was curious about what trick she had under her sleeve. Shokihu Misaki is one of the leading candidates of Takawadia's student council as president and the queen of the largest clique in the school. She will do anything just to win, but her opponent will also be willing to do anything just to bring her to death. Will she be able to win and become the president? Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you love this manga. Have a good day.